For more on the judiciary sector, we are now being joined on the news at 10 by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Okutekpa, who is in our Abuja studios. I want to thank you so much indeed for joining us on the news at 10. How would you assess the judiciary 59 years after independence?
Well, good evening, Gimba. Good evening, Nigeria. I think Nigerian judiciary within the last 59 years have done the best they could, given the circumstances they found themselves. As you may have seen in your preview, the judiciary is battling to gain independence. You know that Nigerian judiciary has been doing the best they can under the very difficult and excruciating circumstances, either foisted on them by the other arms of government or by the circumstances they find themselves, or some who, very few amongst them, who may not want independence. But by and large, I think Nigerian judiciary has been able to sustain the democracy that we have, given the landmark decisions they have given, particularly during the period that impeachment proceedings in this country became something like you can be done from a brothel. So it was the Nigerian judiciary that, given a stamp of authority, that impeachment proceeding is a serious matter and that it needs to be done in a manner as prescribed by the Constitution. And so for me, the Nigerian judiciary, given the circumstances under which they found themselves, have done creditably well, although there is room for improvement. You mentioned, for instance, the question of delay in administration of justice. Right now, what the Nigerian judiciaries are engaging themselves in mostly is political matters, as if politics is the only business in Nigeria. Other areas of concern are left untouched, not because the judiciary didn't want to do it, but because they are overburdened with work. Nigerian judiciary is about the only judiciary I know in the world that we still engage ourselves in manual handwriting. Judges, the courts are not automated. The courtrooms are nothing but in shambles. So the circumstances call for urgent state of emergency to be declared in the judiciary for the effective and efficient administration of justice in Nigeria.
You want a state of emergency to be pronounced on the judicial system, and you've made a lot of notifications here concerning the challenges that we face. But are there any quick fixes to it, talking about solutions now? What solutions would you prefer to try to ensure that this kind of challenges, we overcome them once and for all?
First, I think there should be an improvement in the condition of judicial officers. The courtrooms should be improved. Now, we also need more judges. If you recall, in the Supreme Court of Nigeria, for instance, have not had its full complement of 21 justices as prescribed in the Constitution. I do not know why, for instance, we should not have the equivalent number of Senate as justices of Supreme Court, the equivalent number of members of the House of Representatives as the justices of the Court of Appeal, and in the same way go down the states. We have the equivalent number of members of the House of Assembly as constituting judges of the state high courts, because the volume of litigations, the volume of work on our judges is so much that you don't expect them to work with and come out with effective and efficient justice delivery system, because now the environment is not conducive. Judges are expected to go to read in the night. In most cases, they don't have a conducive accommodation, no social amenity, no light, no nothing. So you don't expect judges to work under that excruciating environment and expect that you are going to have efficient and effective justice delivery system. The second point is the recruitment of our judges must take care of those who have capacity to withstand temptation, those who have capacity to say no to corruption, because Nigerian judges are working in a corrupt environment, and when you are working in a corrupt environment, you are likely to be tempted. Because if a judge, for instance, that goes on election petition, the chairman, for instance, as I heard on a good note, is paid 800,000. How do you expect that person to resist temptation of somebody coming to with a whopping sum of money of, say, $500,000? How will you resist the temptation? So we need to make the environment conducive for judges so that those who then have propensity for corruption can then be dealt with when the environment is made conducive for them.
That's a good place to let it rest. I must sincerely thank you, Mr. Jibrin Okutekpa, a senior advocate of Nigeria, for enlightening us more on the ways to go in combating the challenges we face in the judicial process in our country. Many thanks indeed for talking to us here on the News at 10.